The summer of 1995 was meant to be the adventure of a lifetime for 5 high school friends from Portland, Maine. Join Jake Ace Miller, Emily M. Carter, Brian Turbo Thompson, Claire Whiz Wilson, and Michael Mike Davis as they embark on a camping trip to the Appalachian Mountains. What starts as a fun getaway quickly turns into a nightmare when the group hears eerie whispers in the woods. Their curiosity leads them to an abandoned cabin and a mysterious journal detailing the fate of a man named Henry Sullivan. Following the journal's clues, they uncover dark secrets about the Brotherhood of the Whispering Winds and their supernatural experiments. As the friends navigate a hidden cave and confront ancient spirits, they must escape the dangers that lurk in the wilderness. Will they make it out alive, or will the whispers consume them? Watch this thrilling tale of adventure, mystery, and the supernatural unfold.
Title: Whispers in the Wilderness. The summer of 1995 was supposed to be the best one yet. A group of 5 high school friends had been planning their camping trip to the Appalachian Mountains for months. The group consisted of the adventurous leader Jake Ace Miller, the clever and resourceful Emily M. Carter, the always jovial Brian Turbo Thompson, the quiet and observant Claire Whiz Wilson, and the logical pre-med student Michael Mike Davis. They were all eager to escape the monotony of suburban life and embark on an unforgettable adventure. The drive to the mountains was filled with laughter and music from their mixtapes. As they reached the entrance to the park, they were greeted by the sight of dense forests, towering peaks, and the promise of a great adventure. They parked their car, grabbed their backpacks, and set off on the trail that would lead them to their campsite. The first day was uneventful but enjoyable. They set up their tents, gathered firewood, and cooked dinner over the campfire. As the sun set, the group sat around the fire telling ghost stories and roasting marshmallows. The moon cast an eerie glow over the campsite, and the forest seemed to come alive with the sounds of nocturnal creatures. As the night grew darker, Whiz noticed something strange. "Do you guys hear that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Hear what?" Turbo replied, looking around. "It sounds like whispering," Whiz said, her eyes wide with uncertainty. The group fell silent, straining their ears to listen. At first they heard nothing but the crackling of the fire and the rustling of leaves, but then, faintly, they heard it too. It was like distant whispers, barely audible, but undeniably there. "Must be the wind," Ace said, trying to sound confident. "Yeah, probably just the wind," Mike agreed, though he didn't sound entirely convinced. They brushed it off and continued with their stories, but the strange whispers lingered in the back of their minds. The next morning, the group decided to go for a hike deeper into the forest. They followed a narrow trail that wound through the trees, leading them to a secluded clearing. As they explored the area, Em stumbled upon an old, weathered cabin hidden among the trees. "Guys, check this out," she called out, waving them over. The cabin looked like it hadn't been inhabited for years. The windows were broken and the door hung loosely on its hinges. Inside, they found remnants of furniture, old newspapers, and personal belongings. It was as if the occupants had left in a hurry and never returned. "This place gives me the creeps," Turbo said, glancing around nervously. "We'll see if we can find any clues about who lived here," Whiz suggested, her curiosity piqued. As they sifted through the cabin, they found a journal belonging to a man named Henry Sullivan. The entries detailed his life in the mountains, his encounters with wildlife, and his growing paranoia about being watched. "Listen to this," Em said, reading aloud from the journal. "I've been hearing whispers in the woods. At first I thought it was the wind, but now I'm not so sure. I feel like something or someone is watching me." The group exchanged uneasy glances. It seemed that the strange whispers they had heard the previous night were not a figment of their imagination. As they continued reading, they discovered that Henry had gone missing under mysterious circumstances. His final entry was dated over 20 years ago and mentioned a hidden cave where he believed the whispers originated. "We have to find this cave," Ace declared. "Maybe it'll give us some answers." Reluctantly, the group agreed. They set off in search of the cave, following the directions in Henry's journal. The forest grew denser as they ventured further, and the sense of unease grew stronger. The whispers returned, louder and more insistent, as if urging them onward. After hours of searching, they finally found the entrance to the cave, hidden behind a thick curtain of vines. The air inside was cold and damp, and the walls were covered in strange, ancient symbols. "This is it," Mike said, his voice echoing off the walls. "This is where the whispers are coming from." As they explored the cave, they stumbled upon a hidden chamber filled with old, tattered belongings. Among them was a photograph of Henry Sullivan with a group of men, all wearing similar clothing. The back of the photograph was inscribed with the words, "The Brotherhood of the Whispering Winds." "What do you think this means?" Turbo asked, holding up the photograph. "I don't know, but I have a feeling we're about to find out," Whiz replied, her eyes scanning the chamber. Suddenly, the whispers grew louder, filling the cave with an overwhelming cacophony. The group clutched their heads, trying to block out the sound, but it was no use. The whispers seemed to be coming from within their own minds. "Make it stop!" Ace cried, tears streaming down her face. Just as quickly as it had started, the noise stopped. The group looked around in stunned silence, trying to make sense of what had just happened. "We need to get out of here," Ace said, his voice trembling. "This place is dangerous." As they made their way out of the cave, they stumbled upon a hidden passageway that led to another chamber. Inside, they found a large stone altar covered in strange markings. On the altar lay the skeletal remains of a man, his hand clutching a worn leather book. Mike carefully picked up the book and opened it. The pages were filled with cryptic symbols and incantations, as well as detailed descriptions of rituals performed by the Brotherhood of the Whispering Winds. "This is some kind of dark magic," Mike said, his voice barely above a whisper. "They must have performed a ritual that went wrong." As they pieced together the clues, they realized that the Brotherhood had been conducting experiments with supernatural forces, attempting to communicate with spirits in the mountains. The whispers were the voices of those spirits, warning them of the dangers that lay ahead. Just as they were about to leave, the ground beneath them began to tremble. The cave walls shook and debris rained down from above. The group scrambled to find a way out, but the entrance was blocked by fallen rocks. "We're trapped!" Turbo shouted, panic rising in his voice. "Look, there's another way out." Whiz pointed to a narrow tunnel that led deeper into the cave. With no other options, they followed the tunnel, hoping it would lead them to safety. As they navigated the labyrinthine passages, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Finally, they emerged into a hidden valley, surrounded by towering cliffs. In the center of the valley stood an ancient stone structure, covered in the same symbols they had seen in the cave. "This must be the heart of the Brotherhood's activities," Ace said, his eyes scanning the structure. As they approached, they heard the whispers again, louder and more insistent than ever. The ground beneath them began to shake, and a blinding light enveloped the valley. When the light faded, they found themselves standing in the same spot, but something was different. The air felt heavier, and the landscape seemed distorted, as if they had crossed into another realm. "We need to get out of here," Em said, her voice trembling. "This place isn't safe." As they made their way back to the cave, they were confronted by the spirits of the Brotherhood, their ghostly forms flickering in and out of existence. The spirits spoke in unison, their voices echoing through the valley. "You have disturbed our sacred ground. Leave now or suffer the consequences." The group hurried back through the tunnel, their hearts pounding in their chests. When they finally emerged from the cave, they were relieved to find themselves back in the familiar forest. "We need to get out of here," Mike said, his voice steady. "We can't stay in these mountains any longer." As they made their way back to their campsite, they realized that the whispers had stopped. The forest seemed to have returned to its normal state, but the memory of their encounter with the supernatural would stay with them forever. They packed up their belongings and left the mountains, vowing never to return. As they drove back to town, they couldn't help but feel a sense of unease, wondering if the spirits were still watching them. Years later, they would still talk about that summer, trying to make sense of what had happened. But one thing was certain. Their encounter with the Brotherhood of the Whispering Winds had changed them forever. Thanks for joining us on another thrilling quest. We hope you enjoyed unraveling today's mystery. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Thrill Quests to keep the adventure alive. And remember, there's always another mystery waiting to be solved, so be sure to tune in for tomorrow's episode. Until then, stay curious and keep questing.